One of the craziest and scariest things that's ever happened to me took place about 3 years ago. I had just recently moved to a new city for work, and I didn't really know much about it. I had never been there before, but within my first few months of living there, I got to like it. I've moved a few times, and when I live in a new city, I always go to all the hiking trails and parks that they have. Some are good, some are not, but I always try to find out which are which. So one night, I was going to a brand new park that I'd never been to before. It had some trails and paths, and I went there after work in the later afternoon. When I arrived near the trailhead, there was a small parking lot where I parked my car. This park had a lot of woods in it, and the parking lot was sort of surrounded by it. However, nobody else was there when I arrived, so I figured that it would be a quiet hike. What I didn't take into account was the length of the trails at this particular park, as they were a lot longer than I recognized. So I started out and I went pretty deep through the woods, and then I turned into some open areas. I didn't see anyone, but I was enjoying it, until I realized that I was way out there and that it was starting to get dark. So at that point, I decided to turn back. As I went on the trail the way that I had originally come, it got darker and darker. Soon it was completely dark. It felt a little bit spooky to be out there alone at night. However, I knew the way back pretty well. After it being dark for a good 20 minutes at least, I finally made it back to the parking lot. I breathed a sigh of relief and got back to my car. At the time, I was driving this older crossover SUV. It had some problems and I needed a new car, but it actually ran pretty decent. So anyways, I got inside and began driving home. But right when I left, the warning dinged that I was low on gas, so I decided to stop. And it was probably about a mile down the road that I noticed this little gas station on a corner. So I pulled in and then parked at a pump. Nobody else was there, but the building was open. I got out of my car and went inside to pay for gas. However, right as I was getting inside the store, I heard what sounded like my car door opening behind me. This made me turn around. When I did, I saw a back door to my car was open and this random man was getting out of it. I froze where I was in complete shock and I continued to watch. This man then walked out of the gas station parking lot, across the street, and into the woods. I could not believe what I had just seen. I told the person working at the gas station that some guy had just come out of my car. I think he was almost as confused as I was though, because he hadn't seen it, so he didn't really know anything about the situation. So I ended up just paying for the gas and then I went back out and filled the tank. I looked in the back of my car and I kept looking at that spot of the woods to see if the man would come out of it. My car was empty now and the man did not emerge from the woods. But I realized that the guy must have been in there when I was driving. The back doors to my car didn't lock from the key remote that I had. They had the old kind of locks where you raise them to unlock the door and then push them down to lock it. And because my key thing didn't work, if the doors were left unlocked, you would have to physically push them down from inside the car, or else the doors would be unlocked. And to be honest, I never really paid much attention to it. I realized that my car must have been unlocked and the guy must have just walked right in. He had to have been in the far back of my car behind the rear seats though, or else I probably would have seen him for sure. But I was just glad that he was now gone. I went home after that. I was freaked out about the whole thing. I still am when I think about it. I was driving with some random guy hiding in the back of my car. It makes me really glad that I stopped for gas. Why the guy left my car, I'm not sure. Perhaps he thought that I knew he was there and I was going into the gas station to get help. That's my best guess. I don't think that he just wanted a lift from the park to that section of the woods. What his real intentions were with getting in my car in the first place, I really don't know. A couple of years ago, I used to work at a store that was in town. During this time, I lived in an apartment building that was only like a mile down the road. So I would often walk to and from work every day, which was not too bad. Most of the time that I worked, I would get off pretty late at night. I would take this one sidewalk along a road that was busy during the day, but much more quiet at night. Then I would turn and go a block down or so before arriving at my apartment. One time when I worked, I got off at about 11 o'clock p.m. I left work and then was going to walk home again like normal. Most of the time when going home, I would not see anybody else. Occasionally, I would encounter one or two people maybe, but it was never a big deal. Obviously, this late at night, things were quiet. So I walked along the sidewalk for probably more than half a mile. The road was to my right, and to my left, at this stretch of the road, was a small neighborhood of townhouses. Coming up on the left was a stretch of woods, and then they had trees in the small space of grass between the sidewalk and the road. It was dark, but every so often there was a street light. So as I continued, I was looking at my phone for a couple minutes. I looked up and I noticed up ahead there was now a man just standing in the middle of the sidewalk facing me. He was a really long ways up though, probably several hundred feet. I couldn't make out much about him other than that he was just standing there in my direction. As I continued to walk towards him, I started to get a bad feeling about it. Why was he just standing there in the middle of the sidewalk, not moving and looking at me? He didn't wave or anything, and he wasn't on his phone or doing anything like that. I thought for a second that maybe he was at a bus stop, but the further I looked up there and the closer I got, I realized that it was not a bus stop or even that close to one. I considered for a second about turning around and just walking away, but I told myself not to. I was tired and wanted to go home, and I figured that it was nothing. Soon I was probably within 100 feet of the guy. I was getting more and more nervous, but at that point the man then turned and started walking off the sidewalk, but he was heading into the woods. It was strange because there was no path there or anything like that. This was just a really dense spot with tall grass, bushes, and many trees. I really didn't know what he was doing, but I had a small sigh of relief from him just getting out of my way, so I continued. Still, with the guy now someplace in the woods, this didn't make it seem any less weird. It really seemed even more weird now. For the first few seconds that he walked into the woods, I sort of heard the trees and stuff moving from him walking in there, but as he was farther away, and once he really got in there, I stopped hearing anything, and obviously I couldn't see him. Soon I approached the spot where he went into the woods. I was nervous that he could jump out or something. When I got to the spot, I walked faster, and I also went slightly off the sidewalk and into the grass by the road. I glanced over and didn't see or hear anything. This made me feel better, and I kept quickly walking back home. For the next 50 feet or so, I glanced over my shoulder a few times just to make sure that he didn't come out of the woods, and he didn't. So now I was more than halfway back, and I just had to walk farther down the sidewalk. About 5 minutes later or so, I had finally reached the corner where I would turn, and then my apartment was just across the street. So I was like 25 feet from the corner, and for whatever reason, I looked behind me. When I did, I saw the same guy. He was now on the sidewalk a long ways back, but jogging in my direction. And he was jogging in this weird way where he had really long strides, and he was pretty fast. My heart started racing instantly. I quickly walked faster and made it around the corner. The bushes there at the edge of the business property on the corner would make it so that the guy couldn't see me until he got to the corner. So then I started sprinting. I went a short ways and didn't even bother to get to the crosswalk. There were no cars on the street at that moment, so I just sprinted across the street and then got to my apartment building. I didn't bother to look back, and I made it to the door and went inside. Then I went up to my apartment on the second floor of the building, and I felt safe again. My windows were covered, and I didn't bother to look out of them. I knew that I was safe now, and I didn't even know if the guy knew where I went or if he had stopped following me. I assumed that he did, but I was creeped out from the experience. So I stayed up for maybe another hour or so, and then I went to bed. I got into my bedroom and turned out all the lights. My apartment just happened to be at the front of the building on the second floor, like right above and to the left the main front door of the building. So sometimes in the morning or even late at night, I would hear people coming and going, but it was never a big deal, and it wasn't too loud. That night, as I laid in bed, I heard the sound of someone knocking loudly on the front door to the apartment. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then it happened again. I was curious, so I got out of bed and went to my window. When I looked, I saw the same man. He was knocking on the door to try to get in. And literally a second after I saw him, he looked up right at me. I quickly closed the blinds again and then ducked down, but the guy stopped knocking. I laid there on the floor, too freaked out to move for a few minutes. After a short time, I carefully went to the window again. The man was now gone. I hadn't heard the door open, so I didn't think he got in, but I was really freaked out now. I went to my front door and double-checked that it was locked. Then I tried to watch TV to relax and told myself that it was fine. Eventually, I was able to fall asleep, but I decided to stop walking home at night. For several weeks after that, I was able to get rides home from coworkers because I lived so close and it wasn't a problem for them. I never saw that guy again. I don't live in that building anymore, but the whole experience still freaks me out to remember it. That guy must have followed me, and then he was still at the building like an hour later. I will never forget seeing him jogging towards me or seeing him look up at me in my apartment. I live by myself in this kind of older, not so nice apartment. It's a building that has units on a bottom floor and a top floor. Mine is on the bottom, and my door opens up to the outside. In front of the building is a parking lot, and to the side and back there's kind of a grassy area and some trees. That connects to a neighborhood next door. And my building really isn't that big. There's maybe 20 or 30 apartments in it total. So anyways, a couple of months ago I was at home by myself. Normally I would just be playing video games in my room or something like that. I think that's what I was doing on this night, and I remember that it was probably close to midnight and my cell phone started ringing. I looked at it and saw that the number was from my area code, but I didn't recognize it. I didn't know who it would be, but I decided to answer. Based on the fact that it was a local number, I figured it wasn't a scam call. Plus, it was late at night, which is unusual to get a call at that time. When I answered, I heard the voice of what sounded like a young woman. She said, "Can you come outside?" I asked who was calling because I didn't recognize her voice. She didn't say. Instead, she just repeated herself, asking for me to come outside. I asked what she needed and if she was okay. Based on the tone of her voice, she sounded borderline desperate and sad. She still didn't answer me. She told me to come outside again. I asked her where she was, but she wouldn't say anything else. She just kept repeating herself. This random call out of the blue was making me feel really weirded out. I was trying to figure out what this situation was. This woman was not giving me any information other than just telling me to come outside over and over again. But then she stopped saying anything. I was still asking her to give me more information, but there was nothing on the other end. She didn't hang up, but I didn't know what she wanted. I just heard silence on the other end of the phone. So I got up and went to my windows and looked out, but I didn't see her or anyone. Around the apartment building, it would get pretty dark and quiet at night. Because the road off the building was a rather quiet one, and the grass area surrounding it didn't get much activity being by a neighborhood, I decided that I would go outside. I asked again if she was there, but she still didn't answer me, so I hung up the phone. I went to my door and walked outside. When I got out there, it was completely silent. The only reason I was going out there was because I thought maybe the woman needed help. But why wouldn't she answer me? I took a few steps out and looked around. Then I walked towards the side of the building by the grassy area. Still, there was nothing. I was looking around, wondering if she was over there. When I got almost near the back of the building, I heard a noise. Someone was there, but they were out of my sight. I stopped because I just had a bad feeling. I called out asking who was there, but I got no response. So I didn't go any closer. Just then, I heard the sudden sound of at least 2 people walking. They were behind the building, and it sounded like they were heading somewhere quick. I can't say for certain if they were walking in my direction, but my instincts just told me to get out of there, so I did. I quickly jogged back around to the front of the building and then went back in my place. I looked out of my front window, but nobody came around. And literally like 30 seconds after getting back inside, my phone rang again. It was the same number, and I answered it. The same woman once more started telling me to go outside again. This seemed fishy to me now. I tried to get her to tell me anything. I asked her where she was, who she was, and why she was calling me. But the only thing she would say was, "Can you come outside?" So finally, I said that I was calling the police. At that point, she stopped talking and hung up. After that, I contemplated actually calling the cops, because the fact that she hung up when I mentioned it seemed sketchy. But I figured that if the police came out there, they wouldn't find anything. I'm sure if this was some kind of a setup or a trap, the people would be long gone by then. So I just looked out of my windows for a few more minutes and then went back to what I was doing. Nothing ever came of it. I'm not sure if it was some kind of a setup or what. The biggest mystery to me, though, is how this woman got my number and who she was, because I really don't know. This happened when I was a kid, about 12 years old. At that time, I lived at home with my parents and my younger brother, who was 10 at the time of this story. Our house was one level with a basement and in a pretty typical neighborhood. We had a front yard, a backyard, both of which were not that large, but enough space to hang out and do stuff. So one evening, it was about sunset and getting dark. My little brother had just gone outside a little bit earlier. He was always running around playing sports and was really active. My parents were in the living room, I think, which was at the front end of the house. And then I was in my bedroom, which was at the back end of the house. I had a window that looked out to the backyard, except I was sitting at my desk and doing homework facing in the opposite direction. As I was there in the middle of my homework assignment, I heard something hit my bedroom window behind me. I didn't even bother to look. I figured that it was my brother either throwing a ball against the window or messing with me. He would often do stuff like that. A few minutes later, it happened again, and I still didn't look. But then maybe a minute after that, I heard a knocking at the window. This was annoying, so I decided to turn around and see what my brother was doing. When I turned around, though, I saw that nobody appeared to be there at the window. Now, I didn't turn around and look immediately when I heard the noise. It was a little bit delayed. It was also dark outside, but I would have seen my brother if he was right at the window. I didn't really think too much of it still, because I figured that my brother just walked away, and so I turned back around and continued my homework. Probably less than 30 seconds later, I heard the front door to our house open and close really fast. Then I heard my brother yell something, and I heard my parents' voices. I couldn't make out what they were saying, though. My brother then ran down the hallway and stopped at my bedroom door, which was open. He then told me that he saw some creepy guy in our backyard. I could not believe it. I asked my brother if he had knocked on my window, and he said no. I realized that it must have been the creepy man that he was talking about who had knocked on my window. We both went to the window and looked out of it, but we didn't see anyone, and it was also really dark back there. Our dad went outside and looked for the guy. However, he came back in a short time later, and he said that he didn't find him and he must have left. My brother went on to say that he had been in the front yard. Then he went around back, and as soon as he got in the yard, he saw some guy standing near the house, and he was standing sort of near my window. So it was not my brother at all causing those noises at my window, but some random man. That really gave me the creeps. My brother must have scared him off because he left right after. I was paranoid for several days, but the man never returned that I'm aware of. This is something really weird that happened not too long after I got my first job. When I was 17, I got a job at Walmart as a cashier. I was young and I had never had any kind of job experience before, so I didn't really know what I was doing very well. I don't remember a ton from my first shifts, but this happened on what I think was my third or fourth time working there. As a cashier, I would work mostly in the afternoon until sometime at night. So on this night, it was getting later and I would be getting off of work soon. To that point, it had been a pretty average shift as far as my memory goes. Things were a little bit busy earlier, but then it got quieter and quieter the later at night that it got. As I was approaching the end of my shift, I had maybe half an hour left when a coworker approached me. She came up and asked me when I was off, and I told her that I was off pretty soon. She then told me that when I had about 10 minutes left to leave my check lane and go to the back room and pointed over to it. She said that she needed help with something and it wouldn't take long. So I told her okay, and then she left and I stayed at my checkout. I had never seen that woman before, but there were a lot of coworkers at the Walmart that I had never seen, as the stores are always very big. So things were quiet for the rest of my shift. With 10 minutes left, I did what I was told. I turned off the light to my checkout and then I walked to the back of the store. I didn't know what I needed to help with, but I didn't question it. Being new to the job, I was willing to do whatever they asked, even if I was just hired as a cashier. So I went to where I thought I was supposed to go. There were the swinging doors to the back room area, and this was in the back corner of the store kind of. It was quiet over there, and when I got in, it looked like the typical back room. However, I didn't see anyone. I took a few steps in, and then I heard the same woman's voice. She called out my name, but she was way farther down, and I could not see her. I said that I was there, and she told me to go down by her. I honestly could not see the woman at all, but if you've ever been to a Walmart back room, I'm sure some are different, but most of them have boxes everywhere and they have sort of their own little aisles. It was all organized, but not as clearly and presentable as on the sales floor, and there's lots of other random boxes and equipment around. I could tell that she was in the far back, but I couldn't tell exactly where. I started walking and she yelled at me, "Over here." I turned and started going towards her. I made it maybe 20 feet and I still couldn't see her. That's when I heard the door open behind me. the same swinging doors that I had just gone through. I looked back and saw a man there who also worked at Walmart. He too I had never seen before, but he asked me what I was doing. I stopped and I told him that I was asked to help with something back there. He came over to me and he asked me by who. I didn't know the woman's name, and I told him that. He looked confused, and he said that he didn't know who that would be. Then he called out asking who was there. This time, though, there was no response. We walked farther up, and then we heard someone walking away kind of quickly, but they were still out of view. When we made it kind of around the corner a ways up, there was an exit door that was sort of propped open. I remember the guy saying he figured whoever was there had left. He opened the door and looked outside, but didn't see anyone. He then told me that he worked in that area in a department, and he said that they didn't need help with anything. He told me that as a cashier, I probably would not be asked to help with anything back there anyways. So I was told that I could clock out and leave, and he would try to figure out what was going on. And so I left. After that, I never heard anything more about it. I don't know what that woman was up to or who she even was. She probably didn't even work at the Walmart. And looking back, that was really weird.